Hi class, welcome back to the podcast. We took a break last week, but we're going to dive in this week and we're going to look at chapter 9 in our book, Leading with Cultural Intelligence. And this week it's going to be pretty simple what we're going to talk about, but it's something that I want you to think about here, okay? So you are in a program, right, where you're learning how to be a better business person. You're learning how to be a better organizational leader, right? And so much of what we talk about when it talks about this idea of leading with cultural intelligence is not just leading ourselves, is not just becoming a person who's more aware, a person who understands CQ knowledge and CQ strategy. All of that is kind of foundational. But from a business perspective, from a leadership perspective, the goal is to then help other people become culturally aware, become culturally intelligent, okay? So I want to read a few passages from the book, and then we'll kind of talk about them and we'll get to our questions. So here on page 209, it says this: most of the book is focused on how to personally develop and apply your cultural intelligence as a leader. But as we discover the personal benefits of cultural intelligence, we inevitably want to develop it in those that we lead. That's the key, right? Is moving from, hey, we are culturally intelligent. Now we're leading other people on how to be culturally intelligent as well, okay? And there's another class that I'm teaching actually in person for our graduate students right now, and we're having some really good conversations around this whole idea of DEI and diversity and inclusion. And some of the pushback that I've gotten in the class is that these are people that they're signing up to get a business degree, or they're signing up to get a leadership degree, a graduate degree, and they're not necessarily wanting to think from a diverse perspective, not necessarily wanting to think from everything that we're kind of talking about here. And so some of the conversations that we're having around this idea of awareness that we're going to talk about next week in our podcast. One of the most important things that I've shared with that class, it's not necessarily about becoming a DEI advocate or a cultural advocate in your organization. Some of you will, some of you probably already are, okay? But my hope is that this class, and if you go on to one of our graduate programs and you study more about this, that it's not so much that you would become a person who is advocating for this in your organization, right? You can, and that's wonderful if that's what you decide to do. But it's more about building this intelligence within ourselves and then helping other people to build the intelligence as well. Even if it's just on a team, even if it's just our coworkers around us. But especially if you find yourself in a leadership position, how do you make people more culturally aware? And as this book talks about time and time again, it's not just about so that you can be a culturally intelligent person. It's also so that your organization knows how to lead and produce products and innovate and create on a global scale, because that's the world that we live in today, right? The world we live in today is not based on the United States of America. It's not centered, right? Organizations today, especially the larger organizations that you work for, are going to have global outreach and global impact, global effectiveness. And so you're going to have to be a person, if you want to help your business grow, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to be culturally intelligent, and you're going to have to help other people on your team be culturally intelligent as well. But coming down here on page 209, it says this: unless senior leaders embody the values and vision of your organization, those ideas remain mere words on a PowerPoint presentation or web page. This is especially true when embracing a vision for becoming a more culturally intelligent force in the world. The level of CQ among senior leaders is the most consistent variable linked to whether or not an organization functions in the world with a track record of dignity, respect, and social responsibility. And see, that's the key right there. It's about being an organization, being a company that is led with dignity, as it says there, respect, and social responsibilities. Okay, senior leaders have to prioritize cultural intelligence in order to see it become a guiding characteristic and modus operandi throughout the organization as a whole. Okay, coping with and responding to fast-changing circumstances and the enactment of a global strategy rest on a team of senior leaders who can draw on the four capabilities of cultural intelligence, and that's what this whole book is about, the four capabilities. Coming down here on page 210, it says this: leadership commitment is demonstrated by integrating cultural intelligence with accomplishing your overall mission rather than addressing cultural intelligence as the end in itself or isolating it only as relevant to those doing international work. So here's what some organizations do, right? They build a program, or they bring in somebody and they do some training, and the goal is just to become culturally intelligent, and that's the end goal. Take a class, take 2 or 3 classes, educate the workforce. Everyone takes a class and all of a sudden we're a culturally intelligent people. That's not it. Okay. Or we only send the people doing international work, right, to the classes, right? That's not it as well. What this is talking about here, this idea of leadership commitment, is how do you build this within the organization, right? Yes, training is going to be a part of it. Those, conversations and difficult conversations and education and all this, all of that's going to be a part of this idea of your organization becoming culturally intelligent, but it can't end there. It has to be baked in everything that we do. Again, not just so that we're culturally intelligent people, just so we can do that and we can be advocates for DEI. That's not the goal of this. It's so that the organization will function better in the marketplace. That's the goal. That's the outcome. Okay. Greater profits, greater impact, right? That's what your organization wants. That's what your organization needs from you. And so everything that we've been learning the last few weeks, the purpose of all of this, again, is not simply to, it's not simply to just be people who understand kind of what the book talks about. Again, it's to be effective leaders in the organization. So here's what I'm going to ask you. And you could read through this. This is a required book, so it's going to take you reading a little bit. But I want you to read through chapter 9. That's part of our reading this week. And here's all I want you to do, okay? Just list out 3 commitments. It talks about right here, right? Leadership commitment. Okay. And so this is what I want you to have a chance to do. List out 3 commitments that you're willing to make. Okay. Based on what you see here in chapter 9, it actually gives some examples of things that you can do: assessments, learning and development, right? Training, human resources, hiring, promotion. So read through chapter 9 and find the different ways. And then I just want you to write out, what are 3 commitments that you're willing to make as a leader to help your organization become more culturally intelligent? Okay. And what I want you to think of really is from a leadership perspective, not just like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to read this book, and I'm going to do this. But what are things that you can do to help your organization, to help your culture become culturally intelligent? Okay. So that's all you have to do. It just makes sure you're reading through chapter 9, and it gives you a lot of different ideas about what you can do there. Just read through that and say, what are the 3 commitments that you're willing to make as a leader to help your organization, especially if you find yourself in a leadership position, especially if you own your own business. What are 3 things that you can do to help make your organization, your company, more culturally intelligent? Hey, thanks so much for listening. I look forward to reading your responses, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Our final podcast will be next week. It'll be another short one. I've got some final thoughts I want to leave you with, but I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Take care.